Hi, and welcome to creating an emboss for your vinyl using Meshy AI. The alternate way is to go in here to the characters in Mixamo and pick one. These are all very good characters. They'll work just fine. But if you want to make one of your own, that's fine. So I put in this prompt here. So we went through how to use Meshy before. If you need a refresher, um, there's a help center here and tutorials. You can go through that. But basically what you do is you type stuff in here and go generate, and it generates four dudes for you. I typed in very fat man in a suit, and I like this one. These are all a little too cartoony. Uh, so I had a texture generate for that. That's kind of fun. His fingers almost work. He looks more like a dinosaur, I think, than a fish. That's my fault for throwing brown trout in there. But he does kind of have like a brown trout head a little bit. Anyways, I downloaded this guy. I also went in and made a few other ones. Here's another try at it. Um, I like this fish head better. But the tail, they put in a tail for some reason, so I'm gonna have to clip that out. And then randomly this guy, I think is hilarious, but not really a fish, not even dressed like a fish. Not sure how this ended up in the fish thing. The only thing that I see on here is fish is if you look into his cuffs, for some reason, it looks like there's fish eggs in there. So I'm not sure what his deal is, but he's sure fun. So any of these would work. The criteria for having a character that works. No, I made other ones too. Here's like a demon guy, and here's more of like an anime dude. Um, what you should look out for when you do this is, will the hands work? This guy, hands are in a nice pose, fingers are kind of um, together, but that's okay. Because if you really intend for him to use his hands, then you're going to have to cut them off here and bring it into Maya, and then work on it from there. Now, in Mixamo, or where Meshy, in Meshy, um, you have the option to stylize the sculpture, do some things to it. If I look, the mesh is pretty dense, but that's okay. Um, you can retexture it, but you can also animate it. Pick one of these that might work. This one, oh, it wants us to rig first. Okay. So quadruped. Yep, that's all good. Yep, that looks great. Maybe put his groin more down here. Okay, I'm gonna do that in Mixamo anyways. So if you want to be done with this whole thing in Meshy, it will put an animation. They just don't have as many animations as um, Mixamo does. So getting there. Hmm. Doesn't seem to walk very well. I imagine that we were a little bit off with stuff. The rig. Yeah, could use a little help. So as you can see, there's a little bit left to be desired with that. So export them, right, or download them as FPXs, and then you can bring them into Maya. Here they are in Maya, and here we can mess with them. Get rid of this tail thing. I'm going to fix that later. We'll just export this one. Well, this one's already exported. So what we're going to do is I'll bring this over here. You can see, oops, I have them all exported. This is Brownfish Boss. There's his FPX. I just need to upload that. This is Mixamo. You may remember this from the Mixamo demo. Upload character. There it is. All right, here we go again. Chin, wrist, elbows, knees. I put his groins a little lower. There. And it might be that his arms are just too forward to make this really work well. Might have to manually do it. Anyways, I'd be happy if you did this. Let's see how it goes. That's a lot of spinning. And there we are. Not great either, but better. Let me go to animations. Yeah, maybe don't go with a heavy set character because you might have to do a lot of reskinning if that's the case. You can see how works. You make a character in Mixamo, sorry, in Meshy, and then import it into Mexico. You import it to Mexico. Well, let me just get an idle here. Maybe the dwarf idle because he's got. No, that's not any better, is it? Orc idle? Nope. Let's look at the skeleton on this thing. Oh, it's not a bad skeleton. Just it rigged it funny. All right, enough. Let's just go with it, and we'll bring this back into, just export this, download. And it exports it with the, sorry, it exports it with the name that of the animation. So we can do this as brown fish title. Okay, open up Unity, and then just take your animation and drop it in there. And then you can put them in. And if you open it up, you can see its animation. You want to check um, over here, make sure that the animation is happening. It is. And then click on it. And we want to edit the animation and make sure that the time is looping. Yeah. And then click on something else and it'll ask you to save. Yeah. And then we can drag that back to our character. It'll create one of these, which means you know that he now has that animation on. All right. If I go play, there's our character there. He needs a little help, but he's kind of fun. That's all you need to do to put a main character, put a boss into your thing. So you can either do straight out of Mixamo, which is a little easier, or you can create your own in Meshy and then import it into Mixamo and then bring it into Unity. Whatever you like. I'm happy to see whatever you come up with. All right. Good luck.